Hello, I'm Francis Seeley from the Enfield Climate Action Forum, and I would like to welcome you to this video today. What we're going to do in this video is look at some of the issues that we've been discussing recently. Back in January, we held our first meeting, our inaugural meeting of the forum, and it was attended by a lot of people, and a number of issues came up. And since then, we've had another meeting where we've discussed points that sort of work around Enfield Council's climate change strategy so that we can respond to that strategy. And we were due to have a meeting at the end of last month, but of course we couldn't do it face to face. So we decided to have an online forum meeting, which worked really, really well. And a lot of people attended that, and a number of issues were raised. And we tried to look and identify what the key issues are. And in this little video, we're going to look at 4 of them, although there were many more that we discussed at that meeting. And one of those issues was climate change action, the action that the local authority is about to take. The local authority passed an emergency resolution around climate change, set up a task force, and has developed a draft strategy, which they were going to publish and have a public meeting about in March. But because of the coronavirus pandemic, they couldn't meet. And so it sort of has been sleeping in abeyance for a while, which is a shame, because climate change is just as much as an emergency and will be a bigger one than coronavirus is as well. Anyhow, we spoke to David Flint, who was at the meeting, and asked him what EnCaf's response to the council's strategy was. And when we spoke to him, this is what David said to us.
Let me just pick up a few top-level points. Well, firstly, there's the question of the scope of the strategy. What really matters in addressing climate change is that we get all the emissions in the borough down. Now, last year, the council passed a meeting saying it would aim to get the emissions in the borough down to 0 by 2030. That's going to be really difficult, but it is the target we need to go for. What the council is actually doing in the strategy is focusing on the emissions it controls itself directly. Now, that's about 2% of the total. So it isn't that it's worthless, but it's the wrong target. The council needs to be using its influence. It needs to be giving a lead. It needs to be working with its suppliers and using its regulatory powers and its development powers to get emissions down right across the borough. So I don't rate it well on scope. Secondly, speed. Now, we call this a climate emergency for a reason. It's because it is very urgent that we get this done. What the council has done in the last 9 months is produce a document. Actually, most of what's in the document that is specific could have been agreed within the first 4 weeks, because almost everything like that was well known to anyone who's been involved with climate change. So the speed is just not there. Other councils, Lambeth, Wandsworth, have done very much better, have had detailed plans in place and in execution by this stage. So poor result on speed. Then there's what I'm going to call strategic positioning. The council treats climate change as a problem and only as a problem. Well, of course it is a problem and a big one, but it's also an opportunity, because what we're going to see over the next few years is a switch in all sorts of respects from a high carbon economy to a low carbon economy. And there is the possibility for councils that move now, for businesses that move now, to be able to get ahead of the game, to prepare themselves for the low carbon economy, which everyone knows has to come, even though there is some question of how fast it's going to come. Finally, I'll move on to 2 softer things. One is public engagement. Now, what we can see about climate change is that solving it is going to require everyone, every councillor, every business, every citizen of the borough. So clearly, when you are setting out, as the council is, to give a lead, to set a strategy, then you need to involve everyone. What the council has actually done is to form a task force, a limited number of people, hold the meetings in secret, not even accessible to other councillors, but in secret, without full minutes, only very brief notes, and claim that as a basis for public engagement. And that's clearly terrible performance. It's not just that it's wrong in democratic principle, it's also counterproductive. That is not the way that the council is going to get everyone involved, everyone understanding what has to be done. But I wouldn't want to feel that I was saying only negative things about the council. So let me tell you the things about which I feel positive. And that is the things that are in the strategy about what I'm going to call embedding commitment. That's to say, making a commitment to reduce carbon emissions a part of how the council operates. The council has said that it will make what I call the carbon test, asking the impact on emissions of every decision of every proposal. That the task force proposes, the strategy proposes, that is made a standard part of council operating practice. If that happens, that will be really good and better than I had expected. And finally, they're going to experiment with a carbon price, setting a price on carbon emissions to be set against the other costs that go with decisions. That is experimental. Everyone knows there has to be a price on carbon, but I think for the council to say that it will do that is a good thing. So those are the things I would praise, but the big things, no, not so good.
One of the other issues that was raised was also that of waste management, and a number of people felt that was an important issue as well. They were concerned about the fact that there doesn't seem to be a proper strategy in the local authority during the coronavirus emergency period around waste, and they were particularly concerned with recycling centres that were closed, and as a result of that, waste was appearing on the streets of Enfield. And of course, recycling is a very, very important ingredient into combating climate change. And we spoke to one of the councillors who's been taking this up with a lot of success, Councillor Vicky Pite, and we spoke to her about what she has done in addressing this issue, and you can hear what she said now.
It seemed to us, a group of us, that to close Barrowall Green at the same time as going to fortnightly collections at the time when the crisis was hitting, and it was clear people staying at home are going to produce far more waste than if they're about their business, and the thing that struck me was nappies and all that sort of thing. So we began by asking whether it was necessary to close Barrowall Green, whether we should delay. And I think that the council's been very responsive about that, and they've given us clear answers. And so what's been happening is a dialogue between ourselves and officers, first of all about why these things were necessary and the difficulties of reversing them, and what policies were being put in place to ease it. So I think when we talked earlier, I went on to say that, for instance, the council is not immune to the virus, so therefore there are 17% of our staff are off. So we're using agency staff to try and plug the gap, that they don't always have the time for the training, and so therefore some bins were forgotten and some roads were forgotten. But that all seems to be, and indeed my own road was forgotten several times, but that all seems to have come out in the wash now. And what we also know is there's 15% more waste. So basically what the council is stretched, obviously, because a lot of staff are being deployed to other jobs as well for supporting community. We got a written account from the council about the policy. It did seem ambiguous insofar as, was it 2 bags every week? What was the recycling? What was going to happen to it? So we persisted in asking those questions. And in the end, we did get not a revised account exactly, but we got amplification of the policy. And David it was who went through that and said, this seems to be what it's saying. So that meant that I could go back to the officer and say, look, this is what we're going to publish on behalf of our communities. Will you correct it if there's anything wrong? And basically there wasn't anything wrong. She was keen that we should encourage composting and all of that sort of thing, understandably. And ultimately we got a form of words that was consistent with the council policy, but also something that we could, as councillors and communities, be really clear with residents about, because the worst thing is when people keep writing and asking questions and saying, I still don't know what to do with my extra waste because it doesn't fit. So I think we're there.
Another issue that came up was that of accountability. How do we keep those in authority accountable to citizens and communities? And this was an issue that worried a lot of people at the meeting. They were concerned about the accountability of the council to communities and citizens, and they felt very often that the council was not always responding as openly and as transparently as they could. But they were even more concerned about non-elected bodies. For example, the North London Waste Authority is a partnership of several local authorities, and be able to, for them to engage with communities seems to be very difficult, and to get them to be accountable to those communities and citizens, difficult as well. And we spoke to Georgia Elliott-Smith about this, and she went through some of the issues that she felt were important. So let's listen to what Georgia had to say.
We've really been struggling. So we are part of the Stop the Edmonton Incinerator campaign, and as a result of that, we've been writing to our local MPs. We've been trying to engage with the council in Enfield and in the other 7 London boroughs that are served by the incinerator. Specifically with the board of the North London Waste Authority as well, which is made up of 14 councillors, Labour councillors, 2 from each of the 7 London boroughs that are served. And it has been, it's just been an uphill struggle. It just seems like everybody has some sort of vested interest in not listening. And the people who are supposed to be paying attention to our concerns as residents seem to be vested. They all seem to be either currently serving or have previously served on this authority. And so we have just found a wall of denial and rebuttals, no matter who we write to. And ultimately, the North London Waste Authority, which is made up of these councillors led by Clyde Lokes, it doesn't appear to be answerable to anybody. It doesn't appear to be accountable at all. So we have written voicing our concerns to the authority and to our MPs and to our councillors. And they are all just coming back to us saying, oh, we're sure it's fine. We're sure the North London Waste Authority has it, the facts are correct and everything's under control. It's just not getting anywhere. Even my MP, I wrote to my MP. Turns out that she previously served on the board of the North London Waste Authority. And so when I wrote voicing my concerns, I just got a blanket email back saying, I share your concerns about waste and recycling, and I'm sure that the incinerator is a good solution. And that was basically the end of it. The way that we're responding is just trying to go higher up in the Labour Party, higher up in the government, because the people who are supposed to be serving us locally are not listening to our concerns. And that is just hugely worrying. This particular project is £1.2 billion of public money, which is being spent on this scheme. And that cost has spiralled from £650 million. Now, that in itself ought to be enough to concern people. But we don't see any accountability within the authorities. To be fair, some of the councillors who are not currently serving on the board and haven't previously served have shared our concerns. But again, they don't seem to have the ability to do much about it within their own councils. So what we're doing as a campaign is trying to go higher up in the Labour Party and elsewhere outside of our councillors and MPs, which surely in a democratic system shouldn't be the way that it works. There ought to be some ability for those who are serving us to put aside their interests and their personal relationships with that particular authority and listen to the concerns of the people. But that doesn't seem to be happening. So, like I say, we are having to take our concerns elsewhere to their other colleagues in the Labour Party beyond our own constituency.
Okay, so those are 3 issues, and they are all important ones that we thought came out of our meeting. And our next meeting is on May the 27th, and that will be at 7 o'clock. And we will be having a general meeting with everyone there where they can talk about their concerns and what they think we should be doing. But we're also going to do something that we experimented with last time and was successful, and that's we're going to go into breakout rooms. The online system we've got allows you to all meet together, and then for you to develop 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want, breakout rooms, and people can go in those rooms and discuss specific issues. And we plan to do that on the 27th. And one of those issues that we'll be discussing will be lifestyle changes and changes in behaviour. And Nia Stevens is going to help lead that group. And she also spoke to us about what she'll be doing in her breakout room. So let's listen what Nia had to say.
They're really good, actually, those breakout rooms, because it's sort of, because the number, I mean, it's brilliant that we have so many people at the forum meetings, absolutely fantastic, but obviously you don't get a sort of proper dialogue with people. So the breakout sessions was an opportunity to get into a smaller group where you could get more of a conversation flowing, and we had a really good discussion in our group around waste management and things like that. But yeah, importantly, we're planning next session to hold a discussion around various topics, and one of those is going to be around how Enfield's council can hopefully help on the matter of individual action. So I set up the Enfield Climate Community Group to help people learn about ways that they can reduce their carbon footprint. Individual actions are a really important part of fixing the climate crisis. And my belief is that beyond the impact of the actions themselves, what's important is that also the more people do these things, the more politicians will realise there's a bandwagon here and they'll want to be on it. So it has that broader impact as well. So anything, it can be from small actions, such as small changes to your diet, things that are small and sustainable, changes to what you buy, how you dispose of them, whether you dispose of things. Small things like that can make a big difference. And also there are bigger technical things such as solar panels and electric vehicles and things like that that people might want to invest in. So there's a broad range of stuff that people can do at various different levels. Okay, so that's one of the issue of lifestyle changes. But we'll be discussing 2 other issues in breakout rooms there on May the 27th. The first one will be waste management that we've already spoken about. And then the other one will be retrofitting homes for those on low income. So we'll all meet together, we'll go into breakout rooms, 3 of them, to deal with those topics, and there'll be people leading on each of those. And then in our next meeting in June, we've already got 2 others in the pipeline, and we'll have a third as well by that time. One of those will be faith in the community and climate change, and the other one that we will look at will be Enfield Parks and how they're developing a strategy towards climate change and sustainability. So I hope you will come and join us there. Join in the general discussion, and then once that is over, go into the breakout rooms and find out what they're really like, because they're quite fun to do, and they allow for a deeper discussion, a more intense discussion, and then they come back and we can discuss action points about them that we can take up with the relevant authorities, including the local council. So I hope you'll come and join us there.